I'll admit it, I had Malaysia completely wrong. Before booking my flight to Kuala Lumpur, my mental image of the country was embarrassingly misinformed. I pictured dusty streets, struggling economies, basic infrastructure barely holding together, and people scraping by on limited resources. And somewhere in my mind, I confused Malaysia with the least developed nations in Asia, lumping it together with countries facing genuine poverty challenges. I'd seen a few photos of kampung houses on stilts, read outdated articles about economic struggles, and somehow convinced myself that Malaysia was among Asia's poorest countries. The cognitive dissonance hit me before I even left the airport. Standing in Kuala Lumpur International Airport, surrounded by gleaming terminals, luxury shops, and infrastructure that rivaled anything in Europe or North America, I realized I had made a spectacular, almost offensive mistake. Malaysia wasn't poor. It was thriving in ways I was completely unprepared to witness. The airport itself was my first reality check. KLI isn't just functional. It's architectural stunning, designed to handle millions of passengers with an efficiency that puts many Western airports to shame. There were luxury boutiques selling Hermes and Cartier, high-end restaurants, a rainforest discovery zone showcasing Malaysian biodiversity, prayer rooms from multiple faiths, sleeping pods, spas, and technology everywhere. The trains connecting terminals glided silently faster than my home internet back in the States. The staff spoke multiple languages fluently. This wasn't the airport of a poor country struggling to provide basic services. This was world-class infrastructure that countries spend billions developing. I stood there with my preconceptions crumbling, realizing I'd need to completely recalibrate my understanding of Malaysia before I'd even left the airport grounds. The drive into Kuala Lumpur demolished whatever remained of my poor Malaysia delusion. The highways were modern, multi-lane, perfectly maintained roads with clear signage in multiple languages. We passed industrial parks with international factories, logistics centers for global companies, technology campuses, and modern residential developments. The city skyline appeared in the distance, dominated by the Petronas Twin Towers, once the world's tallest buildings and still an iconic symbol of architectural ambition and engineering excellence. These weren't structures a poor country builds. These were statements of prosperity, confidence, and global ambition. The towers alone cost $1.6 billion to construct in the 1990s, and they weren't vanity projects. They housed international corporations, financial institutions, and became a symbol of Malaysia's economic transformation. I'd imagined arriving in a developing capital struggling with basic infrastructure. Instead, I was entering a modern metropolis that competed with Singapore, Bangkok, and other major Asian cities. The economic statistics I frantically Googled that first night painted a picture completely opposite to my assumptions. Malaysia is an upper-middle-income country with a GDP exceeding $400 billion, making it one of Southeast Asia's largest economies. The per capita income is around $12,000 to $13,000, which places it well above the global average and higher than many countries I'd never have called poor. Malaysia is the world's second-largest producer of palm oil, a major electronics exporter, a significant player in Islamic finance, and home to thriving manufacturing, tourism, and service sectors. Major multinational companies, Intel, AMD, Bosch, Sony, Panasonic, have manufacturing facilities in Malaysia. The country produces everything from semiconductors to aircraft components to medical devices. This was an economy scraping by. This was a diversified, modern economy integrated into global supply chains and competing successfully in multiple industries. The shopping experience revealed consumer wealth I hadn't anticipated. Pavilion KL, one of Kuala Lumpur's premier malls, featured every luxury brand imaginable: Louis Vuitton, Gucci, Prada, Rolex, Tiffany & Company, and they weren't empty tourist traps. Malaysian shoppers browse and purchase with the casual confidence of people for whom luxury goods were accessible, not impossible dreams. The mall itself was palatial with marble floors, crystal chandeliers, indoor fountains, and architectural details that screamed investment and wealth. But it wasn't just luxury shopping. The variety of retail was staggering. Electronics stores sold the latest smartphones, laptops, and gadgets. Bookstores were packed with international titles and local authors. Restaurants range from local hawker-style food courts to high-end international cuisine. Malaysians weren't just surviving, they were consuming, traveling, enjoying entertainment, and living lifestyles that indicated disposable income and economic security. The car culture shocked me because it contradicted everything I'd assumed. In genuinely poor countries, car ownership is limited to the wealthy elite, and most people rely on basic public transport or walking. Malaysian roads were packed with cars, not just old beaters limping along, but new Toyotas, Hondas, Protons, Malaysia's national car brand, BMWs, Mercedes-Benz, and even occasional Ferraris and Lamborghinis. Malaysia has one of the highest car ownership rates in Southeast Asia, with many middle-class families owning multiple vehicles. The roads themselves told a story of investment, well-maintained highways, sophisticated toll systems using electronic payment, rest stops with facilities that rival gas stations in developed countries, and traffic management systems using technology to optimize flow. The automotive sector is huge in Malaysia, with local manufacturing, assembly plants for international brands, and a thriving used car market. This level of car ownership and infrastructure requires wealth, stability, and a middle class with purchasing power. The food scene revealed economic sophistication I hadn't imagined. Yes, Malaysia has incredible street food, hawker centers serving delicious meals for $2 to $3. But alongside that affordable abundance was a high-end dining scene that competed internationally. Kuala Lumpur has multiple Michelin-starred restaurants, celebrity chef establishments, and fine dining venues that would fit seamlessly in Paris, Tokyo, or New York. The wine list featured bottles costing hundreds of dollars. Tasting menus stretched to 10 or 12 courses with wine pairings. Japanese omakase counters use ingredients flown in daily from Tsukiji Market. European restaurants serve dishes with Malaysian ingredients prepared using classical techniques. This culinary scene doesn't exist in poor countries. It requires wealthy consumers willing to spend serious money on dining experiences, sophisticated palates developed through travel and exposure, and an economy that can support high-end hospitality businesses. The education system revealed long-term investment in human capital. Malaysia has universal education with high literacy rates exceeding 95%. The country has numerous universities, including several that rank well internationally. I visited University Malaya in Kuala Lumpur, and it wasn't a struggling institution. It was a modern campus with research facilities, libraries, sports complexes, and international partnerships. Malaysian students study abroad in large numbers at universities in the UK, US, Australia, and other countries, indicating families with resources to invest in education. The country also attracts international students to its own institutions, particularly for Islamic studies in certain technical fields. There are international schools serving expatriate communities and wealthy Malaysians, offering curricula from the UK, US, and international baccalaureate programs. Education infrastructure and opportunity at this level requires sustained investment that poor countries simply cannot afford. The healthcare system demolished another misconception. Malaysia has both public and private healthcare systems, and the quality is surprisingly high. Private hospitals in Kuala Lumpur, like Prince Court Medical Center in Gleneagles, are modern, internationally accredited facilities that attract medical tourists from across the region and even from developed countries seeking affordable quality care. I visited one hospital out of curiosity and found facilities comparable to top hospitals in the West, advanced diagnostic equipment, specialized departments, English-speaking doctors often trained internationally, and costs that were a fraction of U.S. or European prices. Malaysia has become a medical tourism destination, which only happens when healthcare quality is genuinely good. Public healthcare, while less luxurious, is accessible and affordable, with life expectancy in Malaysia around 76 years, comparable to much wealthier nations. Poor countries don't achieve these health outcomes or build these healthcare systems. The technology adoption rates were stunning. Malaysia has excellent internet infrastructure, with 4G coverage across most of the country and 5G rolling out in major cities. Smartphone penetration is extremely high. People weren't using basic phones, but iPhones and Samsung Galaxies. Digital payment systems are sophisticated, with e-wallets like Touch and Go and GrabPay widely used alongside credit cards. E-commerce thrives, with Shopee and Lazada delivering everything from electronics to groceries. Co-working spaces and tech startups populate urban centers, with government initiatives supporting digital economy growth. Malaysia produces tech talent, with programmers, engineers, and IT professionals working for both local companies and international firms. The digital infrastructure and adoption I witnessed required investment, education, and economic development that poor countries lack. The housing market revealed middle-class wealth. While kampung houses in rural areas exist and can look modest, urban Malaysia features extensive modern housing developments. I visited neighborhoods with gated communities, high-rise condominiums with amenities like pools and gyms, terrace houses, and bungalows that would be expensive in any country. Property prices in desirable Kuala Lumpur neighborhoods rival those in some Western cities. Malaysians don't just rent. Homeownership rates are relatively high, indicating families with assets and access to credit. The housing developments weren't basic shelter. They were homes with air conditioning, modern appliances, internet connectivity, and design aesthetics that reflected consumer preferences rather than pure functionality. The construction quality and variety of housing options spoke to an economy where significant portions of the population had moved well beyond poverty into comfortable middle-class existence. The transportation infrastructure extended beyond just roads. Malaysia has an extensive domestic aviation network with multiple airlines connecting cities across the peninsula and to East Malaysia. Budget carriers like AirAsia, founded in Malaysia, revolutionized regional travel by making flying affordable for middle-class families. The railway system includes modern electric commuter trains in urban areas, intercity rail connecting major cities, and even a luxury tourist train called the Eastern and Oriental Express that rivals the Venice Simplon-Orient Express. Kuala Lumpur's public transport includes the LRT, MRT, monorail, and bus rapid transit, multiple overlapping systems providing comprehensive coverage. Port Klang is one of Southeast Asia's busiest ports, handling massive container volumes that service global trade. This transportation infrastructure represents decades of investment and the logistical backbone of a trading economy. The cultural infrastructure revealed a society investing in quality of life beyond mere survival. Malaysia has theaters, concert halls, art galleries, museums, and cultural centers. The National Art Gallery showcases Malaysian and international artists. Istana Budaya is a grand performing arts venue hosting everything from traditional Malaysian performances to international musicals and orchestras. There are film festivals, literary festivals, music festivals. The entire cultural calendar of a prosperous society with leisure time and disposable income for arts and entertainment. Cities have botanical gardens, parks, recreational facilities, and public spaces designed for enjoyment rather than just utility. Poorer countries struggling with basic needs don't invest in symphony orchestras, contemporary art museums, or international film festivals. These are markers of societies that have moved beyond subsistence into prosperity. The tourism industry's sophistication showed economic on tropical islands, ecotourism in ancient rainforests, cultural tourism in historic cities like Malacca and Georgetown, medical tourism in world-class hospitals, and urban tourism in modern cities. The tourism infrastructure professional. International hotel chains operate alongside boutique establishments. Tour operators offer sophisticated experiences, and tourism boards market effectively. Malaysia has successfully positioned itself as a diverse, safe, affordable destination that offers authentic experiences alongside modern comforts. This tourism success requires investment, training, marketing, and infrastructure that poor countries cannot provide. The retail banking and financial services sector revealed economic sophistication. Malaysia has modern banks, both domestic institutions like Maybank and CMB, and international banks operating branches throughout the country. ATMs are everywhere. Credit card acceptance is widespread, and mobile banking is sophisticated. Malaysians have access to mortgages, car loans, personal loans, investment products, and insurance, the full range of financial services that enable middle-class wealth building. Malaysia is also a center for Islamic finance, with Kuala Lumpur competing with Dubai as a hub for Sharia-compliant banking and investment products. The financial sector's development indicates an economy with capital markets, regulatory frameworks, consumer protection, and the complexity that comes with wealth rather than poverty. The environmental initiatives show resources beyond basic survival. Malaysia has invested in protecting rainforests, creating national parks, and developing ecotourism that balances conservation with development. There are solar panel installations, green building certifications, recycling programs, and environmental education initiatives. The government has commitments to reducing carbon emissions and increasing renewable energy. These environmental priorities only emerge when countries have achieved sufficient prosperity that they can focus on sustainability alongside development. Genuinely poor countries facing immediate survival challenges cannot afford the luxury of environmental protection. Malaysia's conservation efforts indicate economic breathing room. The social safety net, while not as comprehensive as wealthy Western nations, exists and functions. There's a public pension system, unemployment benefits, subsidized housing programs, and health care support for low-income families. Education is free through secondary school. There are government programs supporting small businesses, agricultural development, and regional development to reduce inequality. The existence of these programs, even if imperfect, indicate a government with revenue to redistribute, administrative capacity to implement programs, and political will to address social welfare. Poorer countries lack the resources for even basic safety nets. The realization that hit me hardest came during a conversation with a Malaysian friend named Azza over dinner. I apologized for my initial misconceptions, and he laughed, saying this happened constantly with Western visitors. He explained that Malaysia intentionally doesn't boast about its achievements the way some countries do. There's a cultural humility, a focus on steady progress rather than flashy declarations of arrival. Malaysia also gets overlooked internationally, sandwiched between Singapore's city-state efficiency and Thailand's tourism fame, often overshadowed by China's scale and Japan's technological reputation. The country developed quietly and steadily, transforming from a resource-based economy in the 1970s to a diversified modern economy, but without the international attention that similar transformations received elsewhere. Azza pointed out that Malaysia's poverty rate is below 6%, that extreme poverty has been essentially eliminated, and that the country achieved these outcomes through decades of steady economic growth, investment in education and infrastructure, and relatively stable governance. Malaysia isn't perfect. There are regional inequalities, ethnic tensions, political challenges, and areas needing improvement. But calling it poor was absurd, reflecting more about my ignorance than Malaysian reality. Standing on the sky bridge of the Poorest Towers on my last day, looking out over Kuala Lumpur's impressive skyline, I felt genuine shame about my initial assumptions. I carried stereotypes about Southeast Asia that lumped diverse countries into simplistic categories. Rich Singapore, poor everyone else. The reality was far more nuanced. Malaysia is a success story that deserves more recognition. A multi-ethnic nation that achieved prosperity through strategic development. A resource-rich country that avoided the resource curse plaguing other nations. A Muslim-majority democracy that maintained stability and growth through decades of global change. The country transformed itself within a single generation from agricultural economy to industrial powerhouse to service and knowledge economy. Malaysians live modern, comfortable lives with access to technology, education, healthcare, and opportunities that would have seemed impossible to their grandparents. This wasn't a poor country. This was a development success story that challenged my entire framework for understanding economic progress. This is a new channel, and I'm starting it with this humbling admission, because I think many people share the misconceptions I had about Malaysia and other countries we don't hear about constantly in international media. If this video opened your eyes to Malaysia's reality, if it challenged assumptions you didn't know you held, or if you have your own experiences with countries that surprise you by being far more developed than you expected, please hit that like button and subscribe. Your support helps me create content that goes beyond stereotypes and tourist cliches to show the real economic and social realities of countries around the world. Leave a comment sharing what surprised you most about Malaysia's development, or tell me about other countries whose prosperity shocked you. Let's build a community that approaches the world with curiosity rather than assumptions, that celebrates success stories often overlooked by mainstream media, and that recognizes prosperity takes many forms across different cultures and contexts. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next journey where we challenge our preconceptions and discover the real stories behind the places we thought we understood.